Welcome out there. My name is Audu Akonde, and you are on to Inside Sources. Today, let's have your take, as is our custom to also hear and read the opinions of our viewers. Now, let's go. The first says we should think industrialization, and that's in reference to the interview with the former president of CAN, Reverend Ayokunle. This is from Mr. Sable Rattler. Why can't all right-thinking Nigerian minds think beyond agriculture? What happened to industrial revolution? China and India's economy are doing well due to technology, not due to agriculture. The next one says, greed is ruining Nigeria. This is a response to my take last week, and it's from Mr. Bis Uklev. He says, it is sad that we have too many eggheads, yet we have a crumbling economy. Greed, religion, governance, and politics have ruined Nigeria. I hope that the individual brilliance of Nigerians will shine on us as a country. That's this view, and we can say amen to that. The third one says, prayer can't solve the problem of greed. This is also a response to my take last week. This is from Mr. Demola John Felumo. Mr. John says, our problem in Nigeria is greed, impunity, religious hypocrisy, and a lack of patriotism. Unfortunately, he says, prayer can't solve the problem of greed. Next one says, let's be involved. This is a response to the interview with General Ishola Williams. This is from Mr. The handle Tit Record 2294 from YouTube. He says, part of the problem with Nigeria is that the people who are meant to be leaders only speak on TV and on social media, not in the House of Assembly, not in the Senate, and not in the House of Representatives. The next one is calling on leaders to be innovative. Response to the same interview with General Williams. The name is Von Apochi. He says, we need highly innovative government with leaders that think deeply and critically. The next one says, Tinubu is not taking bold enough steps. And this is also in reference to Senator Omishore's interview. This is from Mr. Joshua Oyewande. He says, what bold step is the president taking? The president is not taking any bold step to fight corruption. The president is not taking any bold step to deal with the fraudulent constituency projects from the members of the National Assembly. And now this is a final comment from somebody who gave a general comment to Inside Sources, Engineer Jide Agumbiade from Houston. He says, this is journalism at its best. I have almost given up on the Nigerian media because of sometimes the tear him down syndrome and to destroy President Tinubu. Clearly, this is a President Tinubu supporter. But this is how he concludes. He says, it is nice to hear something that is fair and balanced. Thank you, my brother, for the service to the nation. And I say thank you very much. And there you have it. My take returns next week, but Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today we have an eminent Nigerian, a versatile politician, and a veteran farmer and playwright. Somebody who has been involved in public life as way back as in the 80s. He was formerly Deputy Speaker of the Benue State House of Assembly, later became a federal minister under the Shagari administration, and also chairman of PDP, former Minister of Agriculture. I'd like to welcome to Inside Sources, Chief Audu Ogbeh. Chief, you're welcome to Inside Sources.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Excellent. Now, so we normally start, by just taking a broad perspective on the direction of the country. So if you look at where we are now, do you say that we are on the right direction or we are not?
Well, I think we're striving to get it right, and usually the pains of tutelage are very intense. I think we're heading there. We understand what the problems are. We have to educate our people. We have to industrialize. We have to feed well and maintain peace, law, and order. in all of those areas, I think we're heading somewhere. But the journey is slow and tedious, and it's full of challenges, some of which we don't have the resources to meet. But we're getting somewhere.
We're getting there. I agree with you, Chief, that the journey is certainly slow and tedious. But let's take a different perspective. So from 1999 up to now, we have 25 years of uninterrupted civilian rule. Do you say that, we are getting more of the democracy dividend? How do you compare that period, this period from 1999 to our previous, experience as a nation, the other republics?
Well, the other republics were essentially military.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Yes. The problem with the military regime is that it is not democratic. And I often say, if we were to compare Nigeria with India, India became independent on the 15th of August, 1947. I was 13 days old.
Wow.
Same day with Pakistan. And before India became independent, Winston Churchill, the great hero of the World War, had said that India could not be a country. That was a land of warring religious bigots and tribal and ethnic warlords, and therefore could not survive unless Germany sent troops commanded by Gestapo officers to keep law and order. That was Winston Churchill.
How wrong was he?
As Prime Minister of the UK. But between that date, 1947, August 15th, and today, there has never been a coup in India.
Look at that.
On the other hand, Pakistan has a different story. No elected government in Pakistan has ever finished its tenure.
And they were independent? They got
Same day.
Same day.
So you can see the beauty of democracy. It's very messy sometimes, but it's better. Because in India, the great benefit of steady democracy is that India has one of the most powerful judiciaries. Politicians are frightened to death of the judiciary in India. Nobody escapes them. And even though India hasn't finished dealing with poverty, India is making progress.
Very true.
They're getting to the moon, they are inventing things, and it's the fastest growing economy in the world now. With that huge population, ethnic and religious differences, India has maintained a democracy. They've just finished an election.
Yeah, true.
So definitely, the military tried. They did their bit here. But when they came in 1966, they broke down a system that was evolving. The regions were very much on their own.
True.
Each of the regions had a diplomat in London. I remember Okorodudu, whose son I met at King's College, was Agent General of Western Nigeria in London. Jolly Yusuf Tanko was Agent General of Northern Nigeria in London. And I think it was, I can't remember now, the guy from the East, Wokedi or somebody, who was representing the East. But we carried on.
So all of them had their
agencies because they were regions.
Separate from the Nigerian ambassador.
Exactly. Slowly. The disruptions have created problems. The coups happened and disrupted a lot of things. Brought in very bitter ethnic feelings. So when we got out of that and became a democracy in 1999 again, we thank God for that. And luckily we had a strong man like Obasanjo who came along. I was chairman then. I became chairman in 2001. So we did make some progress, and whatever it is, a democracy is preferable.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Okay, so while we are on that theme of democracy, and you talked about the parties, let's delve a little bit into what has happened, especially between 1999 and now, in terms of the role of parties. For the most part, and there are a few things, but for the most part, you don't normally even see any distinction between the parties. It's like everybody there are no ideological differences. That's one. But more importantly, and which is the area that I think you might want to address, is that what are the roles? What is meant to be the expectation or the role of the political party in the government?
Now, in 1979, I was in NPN, House of Assembly Deputy Speaker. Then in 82, Shagari called me to Lagos. And I remember that once in a while, if I decide to phone Shagari and we were at a cabinet meeting, Shagari would stand up to go and answer the call.
Even while he's in the cabinet meeting?
Stop the meeting and go and answer. Party was that strong then. And Shagari himself, being a Democrat, respected the chairman.
Yes. Interesting.
Parties have weakened substantially because they haven't gone beyond machinery for conducting elections and then retiring into partial oblivion after the election. It's something that has bothered me a bit. When I was chairman, I did say that a party must hold conferences. I put the idea to President Obasanjo and he liked it. We had one.
Okay.
At which he explained the party policies, where he was heading, the problems he had.
And this was in the first term, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. And he discussed. But there were people in the party who didn't like that, who complained that I was arrogant and I had no business calling the president to account. And I said, I said, no, we produced him. We did.
Yeah, as a party.
Yes, I can tell you some of the stories that happened. When we were about to pick candidates in 99, one or two Northerners came up that they wanted to contest.
Yeah, I'm sure the former governor of Kano.
Rimi wanted to.
Yes, Abubakar Rimi.
And at a meeting in Jerry Gana's house at night, began at 8 p.m., the meeting ended at 4 o'clock in the morning.
From 8 p.m.?
Yes. With Solomon La, Awood Chief Awoni, Yocha Ayu, Jerry Gana, and so on. Were persuading Rimi not to run.
Oh, wow.
Rimi said he was going to run. And we said, no. This thing must go south. And the argument said, no, the South has economic power. I said, fine. They didn't take it from you, they built it. So that's not a reason for the North to keep power permanently. The argument went, you can't believe it. One of the elders actually burst into tears.
Wow.
We took him to the bathroom, washed his face.
One of the northern elders?
Yes. We were saying, look, in particular, after June 12th, we said, let's not take the South or anybody for granted. This country is better together than splitting up again and all the chaos. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, finally we persuaded him. He said he was going to run. And he argued also that the only position that the North could have in the system was to be at the political helm because Southerners control the banks, the industry. Yes, that's not a defense. So he agreed. Said he would run. You want to run as vice president? Fine. Run as vice president. But allow the South. After June 12th and the trauma, we can't tell the South again, you sit there, it's our business to run the country. And at the Just Convention in 99, there was no Northerner. Not one.
That's true.
You had Ikweme, Graham Douglas, Jim Wobodo, I can name all of them. So I said we should carry on with this tradition of party conferences. And I give them the example. The oldest political party in Africa is the ANC, founded in 1912.
In South Africa.
Exactly. Whoever you are, the party is bigger than you because the party produces you and then you go on. And it worked.
I mean, you served in the APC government from 2015 to 2019.
Yes.
You know, and I also worked with the vice president.
Exactly.
I think, Honorable Minister, I think that the promises that the party made in 2015, by the time the Buhari administration ended, it seemed as if, you know, we didn't do a complete job. What do you think?
Well, let me again say this. When government takes off, the pressure on the president and the governors can be absolutely horrendous. The pressure, what is the cause of the pressure? The poverty in the environment. Every day, at least 10, 15 people want to see the president. Yes. Personal problems.
Yeah.
Appointments, favors. And he dares not say, I don't want to see anybody. We put him there. Now he doesn't want to see us. Very bad score. If he has to see them, some of the most brilliant ideas he wants to pursue, he keeps pushing away. Until he gets to the routine of just council meetings, memos, approvals, and so on. And that occupies his entire schedule. It's a very difficult thing to manage. So you find that no matter how determined he is, how hard he tries to pursue his agenda, he declines. It's the same thing at the state level. The governors too go through a lot of pressure. People don't know this. The entire elite class would like to see the governor one day or the other. They have a favor they want. My mother died, I have no money to bury her. My daughter is getting married, we suffered for you, I want money. I'm going abroad, I have a health problem. I'm broke, and so on. And each person of some prominence would like to take this problem to the governor personally. And believe you me, the governor can go to bed at 2 a.m., wake up at 7 or 8, and believe me, to read his files will be a problem. Because if he doesn't see them, they take offense. Yes, we made him governor, now he doesn't want to see us. So the societal problem, the poverty, the inequality in the economic system makes governance very difficult. On the other hand, if you sit there and say, I'm a technocrat, I'll just do the work, I don't care, you will lose the next election. History may turn around and say, you know, he did very well, but you've lost. Yes. Because that's not what counts on election day.
Yeah. So I mean, this seems like a conundrum. So how is this meant not to affect development of the country? Because the president and the governors, they've been elected to deliver to the people.
Precisely.
So what kind of scenario must we have to deal with this kind of situation?
That's what I said about these conferences. Transfer the load of things that don't need to come to you. Because a governor, a president, my God, a president is a slave worker. He works. Sometimes you wonder, do they sleep? Because the number of problems in the head at the end of each day, diplomatic issues, security matters, the budget, the cabinet, your health, all that comes together in one person, and it's big. So it's about saying, okay, during this conference, I have some trusted elders. You deal with this problem and report to me. You deal with that. This is what I suggest. They will say, no, it won't work because in this area there's X, Y, Z. Okay, put it together, let me know. It's easier for him to take that advice and move on because the job on his table is extremely huge. And so we need to look seriously. A democracy is not just an election day matter. You have to keep in touch. And you need to send people to do so. And get a feedback and let you know, because the burden of the job is extremely huge.
I mean, just to back up what you said, Chief, I observed that in the US, for instance, so they have think tanks, some are supported and sponsored by the Democratic Party. The others supported and promoted by the Republican Party. Now, when there is a Republican president, the president hires from the people who were in the think tank, when Democrats were in power, who had to go back. So when he gets there as a Republican, he hires from there. The same thing when it's the turn of the Democrats to be the president, all of their experts and people are in the think tank. It brings them to the White House. Now, it seems to me that this is the kind of innovation that we might develop. What do you think?
It would be a great idea because otherwise the president alone is overwhelmed. We need to do that. It's a system which some people say we shouldn't have inherited, that we should have stayed with the parliamentary system. I don't see anything wrong with the Republican, the presidential constitution. But we need to design structures to support it. And as you said, people have to be there working on issues and problems. What do we do about this? The president doesn't have time. He doesn't have time.
But you know, just like President Tinubu said, they asked for the job. You know, President Tinubu said that he even danced. That he was speaking to the governors. He said that they danced for the job during the campaign. They asked for it.
Yes, they did. They did. But ask them now. I mean, imagine a man like Bola Tinubu, my friend, a very kind person. Personally, a very kind person. So
that's true.
Today, he has taken an economic step which every presidential candidate said they would take: remove subsidy.
Yes.
He has removed the subsidy. Now there are unintended consequences and unexpected developments. Okay. That couldn't have been obvious to any of them as candidates when they took the steps, when they were promising that.
Well, I guess they would know that it's going to cause some...
yeah, but not as intense. Yes, not as intense as what we have. Okay. And today people blame them, oh, he came to make us suffer. No. Which president wins an election to make people suffer? It's not true. But now it's here. And it's so intense, so widespread, that it definitely bothers him. The cost of gari and yam and tomato, and for God's sake, what do my people eat? If these things are so expensive. Now Labour wants their pay hiked. He calculates how much impact it will make on the entire budget of the country. And he realizes it can only go so far. And Labour says, but whatever you give us within this range can't help. Now, those are problems that nobody really anticipated in detail at the time the Europeans were telling us remove subsidy. Right? And I have my own views about some of the advice we get from Western Europe. A few days ago, I heard a comment by Jeffrey Sachs, former...
the economist from
Columbia University, an advisor to the United Nations on economic matters.
True. Yeah.
I admire him because he has never accepted SAP, structural adjustment. Never. You know what he said?
Yeah.
He said he's not sure if the advanced economies of the world will want to see an industrialized Africa.
Interesting.
Yes. In other words, hey, you niggas there, stay there. You have raw materials, we'll buy from you. But depend on us for your toothpicks, your pins, your erasers, your pencils. Don't do anything. Because if we industrialize, they lose. That's the plain truth. I'm not sure anybody got into those details. That's Jeffrey Sachs. He's always complained about it. He and Paul Krugman, Paul of Harvard, Nobel Prize winner and economic professor.
Yes.
They warned against SAP. Even the US House of Representatives had a committee that said that structural adjustment had never helped any developing country. But we got into it. So today, the president now carries the load and takes the blame. So this is, which is where a think tank is necessary.
Yeah.
That will go through all the details and the scenarios. If you do this, what happens? If we don't do this, what goes on? And then present them and explain them to the president. He makes a choice based on the advice and the resources available.
I wanted to take you, further up on that idea of the think tank and stuff like that. And part of the reason why it seems to be something that makes sense is that, so there is institutional memory that is often lost.
Yes, absolutely.
So for instance, now APC has been in power since 2015 up until 2023.
Yes.
Now, but because of what seems to be the detachment of the lack of involvement of the party, I'm not sure that the current administration is benefiting from the level of information and experience that even exists within the party. I had a guest here last week who is a member of the National Working Committee of the APC who was criticizing, the tariff. And I was saying to him, where is your party? So there is a disconnect between the party and the administration, and therefore there's no memory, there's no institutional memory benefit.
Absolutely. This is exactly why I said, even at the level of party, those conferences and think tanks and documentation, you need to keep reviving them and representing them. Presenting them to a man who is overwhelmed by work and issues, because he may find a solution in some of the discussions the think tank had 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But like you said, the party has a program. The party has a manifesto. And you use it to win the election. And when you get there as a president, there are things that you could never have imagined in your manifesto. The security complications today. No matter what anybody said, the manifesto could never have gone beyond, we shall strengthen the military and improve police services and pay them better to keep peace. That manifesto does not do the work of a committee of experts that will tell you that violence is being imported from across the borders by fanatics of different convictions who are going to come in large numbers. And that small arms multiplication in the zone will increase. One expert in that committee may tell you, okay, why don't we set up a system like the American Condor satellite, where you can sit in a control room and watch every bit of your borders, actually see people moving.
Moving in and out.
In and out. Nobody may mention that to you. It's a security issue. But now, you need an expert to say, look, it will cost you so much. Hang this satellite. It watches your borders. Because you can't build a wall around Nigeria's borders. From Badagry to Sokoto to Maiduguri, down to Rivers and to Lagos, it's 4,076 kilometers.
4,076 kilometers.
What kind of wall are you going to build? To be blown anyway. But the satellite can tell you.
Yeah.
Control rooms all over. The smugglers, bandits, Boko Haram, whatever. So as time goes on, this is the kind of team that needs to support a president because he is overwhelmed.
Very.
Absolutely.
But the people will not take that excuse at all.
No, they won't. It's not an excuse, but this is the reality.
Yeah.
And so it's fine-tuning governance that will help. Pass the load to guys whose job it is to do this particular thing and feed you back, and you stay on top of it.
Okay, interesting. Just before we leave that point, so we talked about the presidential system and the idea of parliamentary.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your view to this, my own perspective. It would seem to me, sir, that a parliamentary system of government creates an avenue for greater transparency and accountability. Why do I say that? Because the prime minister, who will be the head of government, we have to sit in parliament, publicly, almost every day, take questions from the opposition, and therefore has no hiding place compared to a presidential system where the president he actually may not even go to the assembly, to the National Assembly, the parliament. Even when he goes, he just gives a speech and he goes away. I think that our problems can get a better addressing if you have a president or a prime minister who is sitting in parliament to take questions, who doesn't have an opportunity to hide. What we are doing right now is that, the president sits in the villa and he sends special assistants, the ministers, they are the ones making all the explanations. In a parliamentary system, the president is held to more account on a daily basis and he must answer publicly. What do you think, sir?
Well, you know why that's difficult here? We're talking of rotation, right? A party may be strong enough to win the election, but doesn't have enough candidate material from certain parts of the country at a particular time. How do you then select your prime minister from that part of the country? Otherwise, one part of the country can continue being prime minister forever. It's a danger. It happened in UK. William Pitt the elder was prime minister for 20 years and handed over to his son, William Pitt the younger, for another 20 years. 40 years of father and son. Nigeria won't accept it.
No.
The point you made about his involvement and presence it's very valid. The other point is the cost of running the presidential system, which is a bit too high. That can be fine-tuned because we're also here arguing about zoning. One part of the country may dominate this business of being prime minister for too long and alienate the other parts. So there is merit in what you've said, and yet there are difficulties in implementation.
We have a federal constitution, where they say the 2 tiers or 3 tiers government, depending on, where we are, the federal government, the state government, and the local government. Now, some of the issues that really eat on the people, health, education, they are actually on the concurrent list. Some of them even on the residual. Now, but you find out that there's a lot of focus on the federal government, even for issues that are meant to be sorted out by the local government and the state government. What do you say to
Thank you very much. We are among the only 3 countries in the world practicing this kind of constitutional democracy. The US, the federal, the state, the counties. And Nigeria, the federal, the state, the local government.
Yes.
Now Brazil is coming along with what they call the municipalities.
Yeah.
Very much like local government.
Local government, exactly.
In theory, it should be a fantastic system of government. It should be great. That nothing is left out. The most minute elements in a local government be dealt with by a local government chairman. Right? And the state government is dealing with their own issue. And the federal government, here you have a problem. Every little thing that happens, we blame President Tinubu. We blame Buhari. We blame whoever is at the center.
Blame Jonathan.
Now, the elite who do the blaming and the complaining hardly go to their local governments. On election day, most of them don't even vote. They're either gone abroad, they don't want any wahala, they've gone abroad, they don't have time.
You're doing armchair criticism.
Exactly. But they are very, very vocal, lashing at governments and so on. So here you have a system which, unfortunately, is not working, what we have now. If it were working well, a lot of these problems would be dealt with. You have a governor in the state, and in this state there are 10, 15, 20 local governments. And the local government system is failing. We had a meeting at the Armed Forces, the Army Policy Center about 7, 8 weeks ago. The Sultan of Sokoto was there, Abdul Salam, former president, was there, head of state, and about 11 governors.
Okay.
I presented a paper about the chaos in the north.
Right.
And I asked them, Your Excellencies, tell us the truth. Is your local government system working? 2 of them got up and said no. The system is not
2 of the governors?
Yeah. One of them said that since he came, he had to pay about 7 billion naira debts owed by local governments.
Oh.
What did they achieve with it? They couldn't see anything. So, supervision. Number 2, funds are shared out, like since the removal of subsidy.
Right.
The quantum of cash reaching the states, federal states and local government has gone up from 720 billion on the average when I was in government to 1.2 trillion.
That is being shared.
Yeah. You would expect, monthly, therefore, that some money is going down there. Go to the local government. Most of us, the political elite, don't go home unless there's a burial or some chieftaincy stuff. We don't go there. These are the people who deliver the votes. These local government people in the rural areas.
Yeah.
On election day, you see widows, old women waiting patiently, smiling with their cards to vote for us. After the election, we seem not to remember them anymore. Because where is the vote for the local government? It goes to a so-called joint account. And the rumor is that some governors will give the chairman some pocket money and tell him to take a walk.
Yeah.
Now, primary schools are broken down. Children are lying on their bellies to read and write. in the classroom because there are no desks.
Look at that.
Some schools now recruit teachers who have retired to come back and teach on a salary of 5,000 naira per month.
Wow.
Yes. I've seen this myself.
Incredible.
You don't see a roof of the primary school. You don't see a maternity where a pregnant woman can be taken to deliver. In some places, they put her in a wheelbarrow to try and push her to delivery place. Some die bleeding. No exaggeration. And each month, there's money being released. But where is it? This is the crime that the political class is committing against the people. On the other hand, on election day, it's these same people who line up more faithfully than all we noisemakers here to vote. So what I want to say to Nigerians is, if you don't want the local government system, scrap it. If it were allowed to work, it would be a fantastic system.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask, if Nigerians don't want local governments, let's say so, because we, the elite who criticize, don't see this point. Much money is going, 300 million, 400 million. It disappears. Where does it go?
Good question.
Yeah. And so we are committing a heinous crime against the people whose vote sustains us and makes us the big shots we are.
Absolutely.
It is wrong. Because if these local governments became platforms for industrial growth, that's where the raw materials are.
Yeah.
Take a Kitty. You decide you are dealing with bananas, Kitty and Akwa Ibom and Cross River.
Yeah.
You can become a major exporter of bananas to Europe. Yeah. Guess who controls the banana industry in the world? Germans.
Do they produce it?
No. The Germans didn't take any major part in the slave trade.
Yeah.
But after that, they did a lot of work in the West Indies where they grow the Macintosh banana. Even in the Cameroons, where they were also the masters. Their bananas are superior to ours in thickness of flesh. We can endure the stress of travel.
Right.
Right? I went to a market in London once. Spinterfield or something, market. Opens at midnight, closes at 6 a.m.
What happens there?
Vegetables and fruits from the rest of the world.
Fresh.
By 6 o'clock, the market is done and closed. There's nothing from your beloved country.
Wow.
A young Yoruba boy took me there. We left at 4 a.m. to go to the market.
And the place was bristling by...
Absolutely, you couldn't believe it. Planes have landed in Gatwick, and they have brought bananas, name it, yams. We are the largest producers of yam in the world.
Yeah.
But Ghana is the biggest exporter. Yes. So these are the problems confronting governance, and we are not really dealing with them.
I have to ask you, Chief, that so what kind of panacea would you recommend, to the governors and, possibly the president to deal with some of these issues?
What I'm going to say here is, I don't know if they will take it. In the very near future, the president, the vice president is chairman of the National Economic Council.
Yes.
They should sit down, a meeting between governors, and decide what they want to do with local governments. And be very honest about it. Any governor who sets up a caretaker committee should not receive any funds, because the caretaker is legal by the Supreme Court.
Right.
Don't send them cash. Deduct their own and keep it. But sit down with the governors. We are building anger and frustration among the young people who ordinarily would be in the villages making their money, instead of invading the cities and going into crime. Lagos, Abuja, these are our own children, but they have no access. If there were 2 or 3 or 5 industries in my local government, some of the young boys I see here won't come. They can't pay the rent, they can't feed, they can't earn anything, and they easily end up in crime.
Yeah.
So I think, and I will suggest this to Mr. President, hold a 2-day meeting here with the governors on this issue. Do we want the local governments? And if we don't want, let's ask Nigerians and then ask the National Assembly to scrap them, because I can't be sending you money which disappears. You don't repair primary schools, you don't do anything. The money simply vanishes. And they say they are paying workers. For which work? I go home, which work do you do? You're on scale 15. The local government, what do? Nothing. You stroll around in the morning and drink palm wine. But these are the issues. Those failures are really creating serious, dangerous problems for the country.
Okay, so you will rather want a situation where, for instance, I wanted to ask, the Attorney General of the Federation has gone to court to compel local government autonomy. Yes. What's your take on that?
I like that. I like that because I think in the end we've got to take some actions, and the governor should see the local government as partners in progress. You deal with this. You have a grader leveling village roads so the farmers can go about. Pump water from a stream, treat it well with alum and chlorine and activated carbon to give the people clean water and remove the menace of cholera and stuff. You repair primary schools, clinics, maternities and so on, and keep the place alive. That's why you're a chairman of a local government. That's why money is allocated to you. Now, if you don't do that, what do you do? What do you do when you say go to work? Nothing.
I think it was the former president that said that for the most part, some of the local government chairmen, we say they collect the money, sign a paper that they collect the money, but in fact, it's the governors that are
they call it a joint account, which was, I was part of the Constitutional Conference of 1998. No, 1994, Abacha.
And called us.
That's what we said. Look, why would you not allow funds to get to these people? You don't want the local government. You alone can't cope with the problems in villages and so on. You can't organize the people. If we were to go back to the old DIFRI, which was a good program under IBB. Now the money vanishes and we're still having more problems.
Incredible.
And we seem to be shy of dealing with the matter.
There are those who argue, though, that what happens at the local government ought to be the business of the state, and federal government should have no.
There is not for them to decide. We have chosen this constitution. Like I said, it's Brazil, there's the US, Brazil, and Nigeria. The three countries practicing this.
Yeah.
We chose it. The military introduced it because they found it workable. Look, in 1964, I was in Form 3.
That's in King's College?
No, St. Michael's earlier. I did HSC in King's College.
Okay.
The Kano state government gave a loan to the northern Nigerian government. Kano state native authority.
Give a loan to the
northern Nigerian government.
To the regional governments?
Yes, the government was stuck for some, I don't know what they were.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you got a loan from Kano, which was essentially a local...
native authority, which is the local government, gave a loan to the northern Nigerian government. Because in those days, tax collection was no joke. Once you were 18, as a young man, there was a law.
You had to pay tax.
Yes, you had to pay tax. There was another law against loitering around in the morning.
Right.
In Hausa, they call it Yaum Banza. Wandering around, you were arrested. Why aren't you on a farm? Why aren't you busy? What are you wandering around doing? Wandering around trying to prey on other people or women or whatever. So the native authorities were rich. They gave scholarships.
And these were the equivalent of the local government.
Precisely.
Which has virtually disappeared.
Which is why Obasanjo, in the reform of 1978, put this thing in place and decided that this was the way to go. And he expected that retired PAMSECs, diplomats, people of a certain maturity will run these local governments and bring life to the villages. We are not bringing life to the villages. We are creating rebellion and anger among our own children who are coming to the cities and doing horrendous things. If you hear of some of the things that these boys are doing, get some Babalawo who tells them if you do this, you become rich. And they do horrible things. Because we are not providing for them.
Yeah. Incredible. Incredible. I mean, and still talking about, some of these concurrent issues, health and education. Are you concerned about, some of the conditions under which people, even in the universities,
That is the one grieving me most. As far back as the Abacha days, Nasiru El-Rufai and I started a campaign for the rehabilitation of universities, hostels.
Yeah, the hostels are, even when I was there in the late 80s, it was still horrible, but I think it has even got worse.
In 2018, I went to Zaria, to the Institute of Agric Research there. And I stopped over in the VC's office. He brought tea, we were drinking. He said, Audu, when were you last year? I said, since I left in 72, I haven't come this way. He said, well, when you were here, there were 14,000 undergraduates in Congo and ABU and Samaru. Now we have 44,000.
Wow.
We haven't added one block until Dangote came and built some hostels.
Look at that.
So we took my daughter to school not too long ago. And when they opened the hostel, including our celebrated UI, sometimes the girls have to come out at 5 a.m. to quickly bathe outside before rushing back to their rooms.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the same everywhere. Ife, Nsukka, go and see where our children, who will replace us, are living. So, not too long ago, I had a meeting with the Committee of Vice Chancellors. I even raised this matter with President Obasanjo. We couldn't push it far. Let's get the private sector to build hostels by some arrangement. I hear that the PTF has reached some format.
Okay.
But ABU is sitting on land as large as a local government, from aviation in Shika, in Samaru to Shika. You have land, an endless land. You have Nsukka. UI may not be that large, but it's still land.
Yeah, still a lot.
The private sector has to come in and provide some of these things, because go and see the toilets.
Nice.
Our own, I keep saying, we're old, we'll go. What are we doing to them? How can you grow up in a ghetto and become a leader? And somehow, there's no response. These are the issues that a party or governance can come up with. A professor who is a member of your party can say, this is what we have. Let the committee visit. And I will say, okay, what do we do? Ask the African Development Bank, can you find us a fund? We want to put in hostels. Because if these kids grow up in a healthy environment, they'll have a better mental attitude towards life.
True.
Towards development.
True.
And it's something I haven't given up on, because I think we need to do something and create jobs. Imagine of the 252 universities we have now, private and public.
Public, right.
We start a program of housing. Let the treasury not be the one to carry the load, but the private sector. Imagine the quarries and the tipper drivers and block makers, people plastering, electricians, painters, and then put solar energy as the source of energy on the roofs.
Right.
And over the next 30 years, you collect your money back. It should be doable.
It should be. So you've been active in national life since 1979, when you were member, deputy speaker in the House, and then became federal minister. You actually had 2 cabinet appointments.
Yes, I was communication and then the steel industry. Before, yes.
And then lately, you were the Minister for Agriculture. I wanted to ask you, so what will you consider to be your greatest impact, in all of your public, up until when you became Minister of Agriculture in 2015?
Well, when I was in the Ministry of Communications, one of the things that they had started before I got there was the splitting of the P&T. The P&T, it was called Post and
Telecoms.
Yes, into 2, which now became NITEL and NIPOST.
NIPOST, yes.
Yes. A previous minister there had done a draft. I had to redo the draft and take to council.
Okay.
Finally, they were broken into 2.
Okay.
So NITEL emerged and NIPOST.
I see.
But I was only there for a year.
Before the coup.
Before the coup of 83. Then after the elections, the President Shagari sent me to the steel industry in Ajakuta. for just 45 days before the coup.
Before the coup, yeah.
But when I visited and I came back, I said to him, sir, if you leave me here for 2.5 years, I'd like to try and link up every state in Nigeria by standard rail. Because there's a place in Ajaokuta called the medium steel section.
Okay.
For making railway lines.
Right.
And it's cheaper to build a railway line than a road.
Especially then.
Exactly. So I said, why? All these heavy trailers, 60 tons driving along, you can build your roads with iron and steel. They'll still break. So put in a railway system and save your roads. And he said, fine. But then the coup came. We were detained, and then we came out and all that. And then I stayed away for a while before I returned into this. More recently, my happiest event was turning Nigeria up to become the largest producer of rice in Africa, overtaking Egypt.
You achieved that when you were Agric Minister?
Yes, 2018. The FAO announced it, I didn't.
Right.
Because then Egypt asked us to export rice to them.
Oh, wow.
I said, we don't have enough yet. Because the rice bill was about $5 million a day on the average.
And it was taxing our forests.
Of course, this is the point. Rice, wheat, milk, averagely $5 million each a day.
Wow.
We're consuming 7 million tons. 1 million tons of rice will fill up 33,000 trailers.
Look at that.
That's what we're eating from Thailand and India. And because I grew up following my mother to the rice mill when I was a little boy, 7, 8, I got a bit interested in rice. I was the first Nigerian private person to mill rice free of stones in Makurdi, 1986. President Obasanjo brought me the machines from South Korea. Otherwise, the local rice had a problem with stones.
Yeah.
So that was the high point.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
So just maybe last question. What will you say to President Tinubu? I mean, what advice will you give him? Or maybe what's your assessment so far? He spent 1 year in office now.
My assessment is that the removal of subsidy has thrown up unexpected issues and unintended problems. Dealing with them is going to be quite tough. Farmers are trying now, the season is here, and I hope that food prices will drop by the beginning of harvest in September.
Right.
But between now and September is quite a trek.
It is.
The issue of agriculture is one that is quite complex. I visited Ibadan when Ajimobi was governor.
Okay.
Talked to farmers. And I visited Ekiti. Ajimobi quietly said to me, he said, you know my problem here? I said, what? He said, these young boys are no longer interested in agric. Because Oyo and Kano are the two states with the largest number of dams in the country.
Yes.
Audu did 23 dams between Jigawa and Kano.
Yeah.
Right? Oyo has 22 dams. I went to the Kore Gorge, which was supposed to even generate electricity.
Right.
But Ajimobi said, Minister, these boys,
they're not interested.
Yeah, so how do we get the younger generation interested in agri? And if we don't get them interested, how do we feed? And even getting them interested is not as simple as that. They need machinery to farm. The hoe and cutlass can't do too much now. So those are my big concerns. Food first. Stabilize the Nigerian family.
Right.
Make the cost of food
go down.
Affordable and go down. And then you go into power supply, which they're working on, because without electricity, you can't industrialize. Those two will go a long way in reducing the crime rate, stabilizing young people in their home bases. You don't have to go to Lagos and sleep under the bridge or come to Abuja here. You're in Nyanya, you trek to Abuja that you came to submit application for employment. Which work? There's nothing here. Federal capitals are not industrial capitals.
It's true.
I mean, Washington.
Right.
They started building Washington in 1876. Till today, the population of Washington is still under 600,000.
That's true.
Yeah. If you are not a hotelier or a diplomat from outside, most of the military guys live in Maryland.
Yeah.
Most of the senators.
Virginia too.
Exactly. They come by train
Right.
and go. So what are you going to Washington for? But here, the belief is that if you land in Abuja, you'll find money.
Well, somebody very prominent told me that the reason for that is, 55% of Nigeria's allocation is distributed in Abuja. That is where people come around and
hoping to catch
a little bit of it.
I'm believing that anybody with a car is carrying part of it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So last question. So how can the security problem in the north, generally in the country, but specifically in the north, because I remember that you addressed this conference that you talked about 4 or 5 weeks ago. What in a very short take, what is how do we sort it out?
Well, it has been growing, and I don't think we paid enough attention. Too many children on the streets, brought up on the streets, hungry, and accountable to no one. Right? So first of all, this issue of education. We've got to get out of school children of the schools, of the streets. That's the long-term strategy. In the immediate, I think the state police arrangement or some form of security like Amotekun can work. Because otherwise, there's no way of stopping it. They have access to arms. There are contractors who supply and move bullets around, including women. Yes, they caught one woman who was ferrying weapons and bullets from Nasarawa State to Kano a few days ago. The police interviewed her. And finally, industrial growth.
Yeah.
How do you have a situation in a region where today you can go throughout a state, there's not one factory working? One. A single industry employing 40, 50 people, none.
Incredible.
Because that's where young people work.
Incredible.
So how do you then industrialize and create alternatives for these young people to say, look, I'd rather be here than be a bandit?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your long service, and your contribution to national. And thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
God bless you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, hashtag Nigeria will prevail. We believe it, and that's why we're here. And by the grace of God, I'll see you again next week. My name is Audu. Thank you for watching.